As you're at Julian, but you're building this clientele in terms of information. At what point do you realize, or how much financing is going to take for me to start my own? Or did you put a plan together saying, by this date, by this year, I want to create my own situation? Or are you happy at first when you start there?
Yeah, so at first I was definitely happy, young, had a lot of access, was going out, enjoying myself. But, kind of saw, the revenue that I was bringing into the restaurant and what I was getting out of it. And I wanted more. So, my first objective was try to get more from where I was, ask for equity, ask for partnership. And it was one of those things like, if you're not happy, the door's there. So I kind of stuck it out and then, had an opportunity to leave and I did. And there was a period of time where, after I left, I was like, well, what did I do? I had it pretty good. So, a little second guessing yourself and, questioning if you made the right decision.
So when you decide to start a restaurant, right, you start Sei-Less, how does that work? You have a partner that you have, like how much money did you have to use? Like how'd you get the space? Like what goes into actually?
Yeah, so it was all compounded by the pandemic. 2020, everything shut down in New York and a lot of places in the country. So the restaurant that I was working at the time closed for 3 months. So, I was home with the family, mask, confinement, watching the news every day, reading online, and not really understanding what was going to happen. At the time, my family was telling me, like, listen, all right, enough with the restaurant business, get a real job. My parents thought that I was, running an Applebee's. So, trying to explain to them, like, you don't understand. I have this network of people that, are going to support me. And, my dad would always tell me, like, these people don't care about you. Like, you're wrong. Like, get a real job. So I had that struggle internally with my family. And, I understood where he was coming from because obviously, I grew up in an immigrant family and, you're either a doctor or a lawyer, some kind of professional. So, seeing me working in hospitality was almost like I was a failure to them. So the way Sei-Less evolved was I was looking for different restaurant spaces, but at the time there wasn't really a lot of inventory and a lot of ideal projects. I'm a big believer, like, it doesn't make sense to take a blank canvas and build a whole restaurant from scratch. Just, the overhead and building the kitchen and the hood system and all that stuff doesn't make sense. So, finding a pre-existing restaurant is ideal. And there really wasn't a lot of inventory in the market at the time when I was looking. So one of my partners introduced me to my other partners. They had a pre-existing restaurant and we looked at it, and within 3 months we gave it a facelift and converted it to Sei-Less and reopened pretty quickly.
How much did that cost?
Because it was a pre-existing restaurant, a lot less than what a normal restaurant would cost. I'd say a normal restaurant build out in New York, obviously every restaurant's different, costs about $2 million. We probably were able to do it for about half of that.
So that's a two-part question. First, the name, Sei-Less. Obviously in New York, when we say that, Sei-Less, is like, I'm going to prove you wrong. So I want to know how y'all came up with the name and was that the origin? So we start there. The second part is Asian fusion, right? It seems to be the common theme amongst your career. It's like Philippe, right? Then we had Julian, and now Sei-Less. Why not any other type of food, I guess, demographic? Yeah. Is there something specific about Asian fusion? The analytics show you that this is the most popular type of food in the city?
Yeah, I think, obviously I believe in sticking to what you know. I have a big following of clientele for that specific food. Obviously Asian food, Asian fusion is a broad, space, but, the kind of food that we serve, it's really Chinese food with a little bit of fusion to it. I have a tremendous following in that. If I open up another cuisine, I think, some of those people will come, but I think part of the reason that I've been successful in my career is that I've mastered what I do in a certain cuisine. Also understanding the food costs and the economics of everything. There's different kinds of restaurants, Italian restaurants, steakhouses, sushi restaurants. I understand the ins and outs of the Chinese food space and, the profit margins. And it's something that just, economically makes sense to me. And I've kind of continued to build it out. So I think that that's the answer, is that, it was something that I was successful at and, it just made sense.
How about the name?
The name, that started when Kevin Durant, who was one of my regular customers when I started my career, he was playing for back in New York, playing for the Brooklyn Nets, and he would come into the restaurant and he would always say, I want a clubhouse to go to after the games, like somewhere that's home, somewhere that's mine. So it was kind of like a membership type thing. That's how it evolved. Of like, you know, if you know, you go there, you know. And the name that initially popped into my head was Say No More. So I was like, you know, what's a good culturally relevant space, you know, name for a spot that's kind of like, you know, not mainstream, but you know, if you know about it, you know about it. So Say No More popped into my head, and then I was like, that's just too wordy. So I was like, how do you say no more in less words? So Say Less. So I wrote down SAYLESS. And this was all during the pandemic. Like I'm sitting at home with my family and like got a pen and paper out and trying to formalize this idea and not knowing that one day it's going to come to life, but just it was an idea. So I wrote SAYLESS on a piece of paper, kept looking at it. I'm like, that you can't call a venue that. It doesn't make any sense. So I was like, well, how do you say in a different way than just SAY? So I thought of sensei, which is Asian, but sensei is SAI. So I wrote SAILESS. Kept looking at it. I was like, it still doesn't look right. So changed the A to an E, and then we got Say Less.
Yeah, because that's how I look. Because when you said to prove people wrong, I kind of look at it like what you just said, like say less, like you like got you, like kind of.
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Yeah. So I think that's part of it too, but also
like heard you.
Yeah.
Like almost like, you know, when people are like, oh, where should we go to dinner tonight? Say less. You know, like it's kind of like proving people wrong, but also like agreeing on something without.
Yeah.
Just giving the head nod.
That's what I'm saying.
It's an understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, say less. Like,
and honestly, you, like, you know, when I came up with it, I thought it was a great idea, but I didn't imagine it turning into a cultural, you know, icon as it's quickly become.